Hello there, and welcome to Pink Milk, your Star Wars podcast for us superfans and those that are usually forced to listen. Today is someday, and someday is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Get ready to drink up. Hello there. My name is Bryan, and normally Tom is with me, but today I'm flying solo. Good luck. You're gonna need it. Oh God, I hope you got that joke. I worked really hard on it. So it's just me, and I gotta tell you, it feels a little odd, but it's Star Wars Day, so I couldn't go without saying hi. And I guess I can't go without lying either, because it's not really Star Wars Day. It's actually May 3rd, but this will come out on May 4th. So may the 4th be with you. And happy Star Wars Day. It's a very exciting day for lots of us here in the fandom. And we welcome you. So the truth is, we were planning on recording our bi-weekly episode today, but we realized that next week is going to be, or this week, is the final episode of this incredibly amazing and wonderful arc of Clone Wars that we have all been enjoying. And this whole season, truthfully, has been really amazing. It's been some of the best Clone Wars we've ever had. It's awesome. So we were going to record it, talk about the first 3 episodes, and then on the next episode, talk about the last one. And honestly, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. This whole arc in particular is really, really playing like a feature film anyways, so that's how we're going to discuss it. And it's so good. It's so good. I'm really, really, really happy at the reception that it's gotten. I know that my ride or die bitches didn't get the greatest warmth at the beginning, but I do think that in hindsight, that whole arc is going to be looked at as being really important with everything we're getting so far. So I'm really stoked. I mean, if you're a regular listener to this, you know how much I love Clone Wars. And if you're not, welcome to Pink Milk. We are an LGBTQ plus Star Wars podcast. But we welcome everybody. We're super inclusive, including those fans forced to listen to us. Not to you. Maybe you, if you're listening, they're probably forced to listen to you. Normally with me is my husband, Tom. And for the past 13 years, he's been forced to listen to me blab about Star Wars. However, I will say over this past 8, 9, 10 months, however long we've been recording, doing this show, I think a super fandom might be building. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think it might just be there. Thank you, Mandalorian. And thank you, Baby Yoda. And finally, thank you, Ahsoka, who over probably the past 2, 3, 4 years has become my very, 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 very favorite Star Wars character. The last episode of season 5 is the most powerful television I've ever seen. It's the most powerful moment in any and all of Star Wars. For me, I was a complete and utter wreck when it first aired. Still a complete and utter wreck every time it airs, and it deeply affected me and actually probably changed the way I look at lots of things in the world, because Ahsoka's decision to, spoilers if you're listening and you don't know, don't listen. Anyway, but you probably have. It's like 8 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is. She walked away from the Jedi Order, and just that choice that she made and her ability to grow upset with the Jedi Order but not be angry at them was just, it was a very, very, very powerful lesson to learn, and I will forever and always be very appreciative. So anyways, Ahsoka Tano is my favorite character. Obviously, these last few episodes, it's like all Ahsoka. It's prime Ahsoka. These last few episodes are so Star Wars, and it is so pure what Star Wars is all about. It's amazing. We will talk about it more when we review those episodes, but man, it's been so good. So we were going to record it. We decided not to, so we could talk about the whole shebang and then probably do a lot of talking about Clone Wars in general, what it meant, how amazing Darth Maul is. But that'll be out in a few weeks. So maybe next week, maybe this week. I don't know. It'll come out. So look forward to that. And you'll probably enjoy yourself a lot more with Tom. So if you're one of our listeners, thank you for being a listener. We appreciate it. I apologize, but you are stuck with me for this long, bumpy ride because we ain't got no hyperspace yet. And if you're a new listener, please be patient. Listen to me because I have an ego and I'd like to be listened to. But it will be better when Tom's here. So, anyways, this is Star Wars Day, May the 4th. May the 4th be with all of us. And this is quite the strange Star Wars Day. I've got to be honest. We all have to. This is some crazy times. I do believe we are in day 1138 of the apocalypse. No one said that joke in any other podcast, I hope, right? Yeah, I don't think so. Is that good? Yeah. But it's not just that we're in apocalypse. It's also this has been a big year for Star Wars. I guess The Rise of Skywalker was technically last year, but the Skywalker saga, the Star Wars that is Star Wars, is now, that chapter is closed. Clone Wars is coming to a close, and clearly the Skywalker saga is the heart. It is the skeletal structure of whatever will come from it. But I think Clone Wars is an incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important part of the puzzle, and I am so thrilled that over this past few years, it's been recognized for how important it is. The Clone Wars redefined what the prequels were. It redefined and refocused how we look at them. It reframed the structure of what the prequels were and made them better. They were already great. I'm a prequelist, always have been. I'm an original trilogy kid who loves the prequels. I really like the sequel trilogy. It can be done. But I really, really, really love the Clone Wars, and the characters that this series has given us are probably some of my favorite of all of Star Wars characters. So it made the prequels better, and honestly, it was the thing that the sequel trilogy had to live up to. The Clone Wars created a new standard for what Star Wars was, and it's a pillar in it. I think it's the pillar that holds the whole saga up, actually. The saga is the thing that's beautiful that we all look at, but the foundation underneath it is really Clone Wars, and the art and the storytelling that Clone Wars gave us is really, really, really important, and I love it, and I'm really emotional about it ending, and I'm very grateful how well it's ending, and I'm sure all of us are too. But speaking of being emotional and being reflective on this series and May the 4th in general, I think these days has made me probably reflect a little more. But these quarantine days, come on, all of us. We're in uncharted territory when we are in a new time, and we know some of us still have to work. Those of us who are fortunate enough to work, my heart goes out to you if you are one of the many that lost their job. A lot of us are playing assistant teacher during these times while we're trying to work. Tom and I have 3 young boys here, so we're playing assistant teacher and trying to juggle all of those things, just like a whole lot of people listening to this podcast right now. But we're doing it, and during all of this, it's a lot of, thinking, knowing that the world will be changed forever, and us kind of thinking about what's going to be the new norm. What are going to be the things that didn't change but probably should have, and then what things did change that maybe didn't need to change out of all of this. It's just never going to be the same again. And just like that, Star Wars isn't ever going to be the same again. It's just been a lot, I mean, honestly, Tom and I started this podcast. We decided to do it last May. I was turning 40, and this was something I had talked about for years. And I was like, hey, 40, it's time. And we spent a few months learning how to do this, and we're still learning a lot. And I think so when we started our first podcast, we had 2 kids. And then a few months later, when we were about to launch the podcast with our first 4, 5, 6 episodes, whatever it was, by that time, we had 3 kids, and our middle child had moved in and joined our family. And then not long after that, The Rise of Skywalker was released into the world. And, that was a big, important film for probably lots of people, but it was a really important film if you love Star Wars. Whether or not you love the sequel trilogy, it was an important chapter. And, personally, I've gone through all of it. I've run the gamut of all of the emotional waves regarding The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, I've from loving it to not really liking it, to being angry with it, to loving it again, to accepting it for what it is, to really liking it now. And and that's where it's sitting with me now, is I really like it. It's a lot of fun. But one thing that came from The Rise of Skywalker that is very divisive, like a lot of the sequel trilogy was the decision to give Rey a last name. The girl from nowhere chose to be a Skywalker. And I know it's super divisive, and I understand where people come from when they're upset with that choice. But I've always loved it, and it touched me on a lot of different levels. Not only as a queer person, but it also touched me and affected me probably even more deeply as a father. Our oldest son moved in with us 3.5 years ago, and now we have, three wonderful, happy little boys. And I knew as The Rise of Skywalker was coming out, I avoid spoilers as much as I can. This podcast doesn't go into a ton of news or rumors or things like that, because honestly, I'm a fan and I want to be a fan first. So we speculate, we do all those things. Well, mostly I speculate. Tom listens, and then as if you listen or will listen, it's in one ear and out the other. But I do a lot of speculating. But as a fan, I don't want the movies to be spoiled. So I think now that the movie's been out, I think it came out that she was going to do that, and maybe, but I didn't know, and it took me off guard. I was really, really happy, but I looked over at Eli at that time, who was not adopted yet, but I knew his adoption date was coming, and she took his name, and he was about to take our name, and it really affected me. And I looked over to my other side, and there were my other 2 boys who had been adopted by then, who took our name, and it just, it made me relive those moments. There's a lot of emotions wrapped into those days, into an adoption. What's a really wonderful day for Tom and I and the boys. I mean, truthfully, they love being there too, but it's also the closing of another chapter, and it's kind of a saying goodbye to their bio parents and their past, and it's filled with a lot of emotion. And I think that moment in that film captured all that really, really quite beautifully, to be honest. And so I understand that not everyone's for it, and I do understand where people come from and the power of a Rey from nowhere. But for me, it just really it really affected me. And I don't want to go into it too terribly much because we have podcasts out, episodes about the Rise of Skywalker, especially that first one. I think I really lost it on that one. If you can listen through my tears, it was all there. But this May the 4th has become really important to me. I don't know if it's always been around or if it's something of the last few years. I don't know if it's just a day to sell more merch or if it's just a day for social media to celebrate and a hashtag or what it is. But, Star Wars has affected me on an incredibly profound level as a human being. We've talked a lot about that on this podcast. And if you're listening, there's a lot of people out there who it's affected very, very, very deeply. There's a lot of people who love Star Wars. It's just a great popcorn flick and all those things. And that's what's one of the things that's so special about this saga and about these movies is they hit people on very, very different levels. But I'm one of the ones that it really affected me and kind of shifted who I became as a human being, and the choices I make and the morals that I possess and my idea of right or wrong. So much of it has been taught to me through the lessons in these movies. And so May the 4th has become a day that, usually I get to celebrate by going to the store and picking up a toy or going to my local comic shop and grabbing a floppy or whatever it is, watching a movie, obviously, putting one of them on, reading a book. I can't go to the store to do those things this year. None of us can, or we shouldn't, so stay home. We're almost there. We're almost through this. But we're almost there. We can't celebrate it that way. But I have a podcast now, and I get to celebrate it with all my listeners. All of us on Twitter, all hopefully new listeners listening to this. But we're here together, and I get to celebrate it on even a deeper level than just buying a toy and celebrating it that way or just reading a comic book by myself. I feel a part of a little community now, and I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But I'm really, really excited for what this is and what Star Wars is, and this May the 4th, because we are coming. We said goodbye to what Star Wars was, and we're about to see the birth of what Star Wars is going to be. So it's awesome. It's really, really awesome. And as May the 4th approached and being in quarantine at the same time, I really started to focus on what Star Wars means. It's something that those of us in the fandom hear all the time. We've heard it with a lot more regularity, honestly, since Disney took the rights over and started writing their stories. But we've kind of heard it forever. We've heard things like it does or doesn't feel like Star Wars, or that's not a very Star Wars name, or this episode of Clone Wars, or this movie, or this moment in a movie, whatever, that this book just didn't feel very Star Warsy. Star Warsy for us super fans in the fandom has become an adjective that I don't know what it means. I don't know if any of us really know what it means, because I think it's a very personal thing, but it's something that's said a lot. And I think Disney's, been financially very successful, especially with the sequel trilogy and with Rogue One, and obviously not Solo to the level that they would have liked, but Star Wars has been financially incredibly successful since the release of The Force Awakens. But it's also had a lot of divisiveness surrounding it, and it's been an all-out war, and there's been heroes on both sides. Oh God, that was good. Please tell me you got that. That's two really good Star Wars dad jokes in one podcast episode just by myself. But I think Rogue One was pretty universally adored, and Solo was pretty much universally kind of met with a meh. And albeit Solo being a horrible Star Wars title, it's probably my favorite of all the new movies. And so I'm not sure what that says about me and what my idea of Star Wars is. But, for May the 4th and for this episode, that's what I want to do. I think I want to talk about what Star Wars means to me, at least for right now, because I think it's an ever-changing thing. What it is, but that's what I want to do here. So I'm going to go for a quick break, and we will be right back right after this amazing little ditty. And I'm back. Still alone, so hopefully the first half wasn't too boring because you're still stuck with me. So, trust me, it's even probably weirder for me. I am not used to being without my honey bunny. But anyways, so happy May the 4th. This is, it's Star Wars Day. And with Star Wars Day and a podcast, I decided I really wanted to examine what is Star Wars. Like I was saying earlier, there's an adjective of that wasn't very Star Warsy or that's super Star Warsy. So what is that? What is it? What is Star Wars? And I guess for me, it's kind of always grown and changed as I've gone through life and experienced more and got older, and it's just kind of always changed. But I do think at the core of what it is, it's really about parent and child relationships. And I mean, that's pretty obvious, but that's kind of what it is, But I think bigger than that, Star Wars is really about being something bigger than yourself and an inexplainable connection to those things that are bigger than you. I think for the Jedi, that was obviously the Force, and to our heroes, that was the Rebel Alliance, and honestly, to our villains, that was the Empire, and it was to being a part of an order and a structure. All of those things, though, were bigger than them. We had Rogue One that didn't really have any Force users, but you had Cassian Andor, who did some questionable things because he felt compelled. He was a part of the Rebel Alliance, and he knew that's what he needed to do. That was all of Luke's journey, was accepting that he was bigger than something than himself, and he had to stop looking to control it, and he had to stop looking for it, and he had to stand right where he was because he was a part of it already. And then accept those things. And I think that to me, maybe at this moment in my life, is what Star Wars is that inexplainable connection to something bigger than yourself. I think growing up as a queer kid, even before I knew what being a queer kid was, I always felt connected to a group and to a community, to something bigger than myself. And I grew up in the 80s, and it wasn't really a good time for the queer community in our society. I remember, I was very young. I wasn't obviously a part of the community back then, but I remember on television, and it was the height of the AIDS crisis, and I know more about it looking back on it in history now as an adult, but being a part of it, there was a lot on the TV, and I didn't understand what it was, but I knew I felt connected to it somehow. I remember telling my mom once on TV, said I was going to be one of those people someday, and it was protesters or something, but there was just a connection to it that was bigger than myself that I didn't understand at the time, but there it was, even that young, and I knew I was different than kids on the playground. Didn't know how or why exactly, but I knew I was different. I was connected to something else, and as puberty came, I didn't look at girls the same way that my friends did. I didn't talk about girls the same way my friends did. I tried because I thought I was supposed to. And this is the story of lots of queer people, you know. But and I was pretty naive, and I didn't really find that community until after high school. I mean, I was like 2 weeks after graduating high school. I packed my car with everything I owned, and I went to a city I think I'd been to once or twice. I didn't know anything, but I just wanted to be gay. I didn't want to have to come out, and that's what I did. And looking back, I don't know how I did it because I was very young and very innocent, even at 18, but somehow I did it. And I, met gay people for the first time, and my best friend in the entire world is still from that time when I just packed up and left. I had a calling to answer. I was on my hero's journey. I was going to go find the Force with a gay thump in a nightclub and some drag queens, and there I was. The Force brought me there. But it was bigger than me, and I guess I knew I was gay at the time, but I'm not sure I knew that being gay was going to be the community that I was searching. I mean, at that moment, I was literally that kid who grew up in the desert, and I never grew up, still don't know actually, but I don't know who my biological father is, and I know that feeling of looking out over, for me it was one son, not two, but feeling connected to something bigger than me and not knowing what that was, but knowing that one day I was going to go out and search for it. And I think, later looking back, I think one of the things that I also really loved about Luke Skywalker, if you didn't know, I was talking about Luke Skywalker, if you're not a super fan, but Luke Skywalker, looking out over that desert, I was that kid. I grew up in the Southwest. I grew up in the desert. I always looked, I love that he didn't really have a love interest, that I didn't have to find a hero and then gender bend who he was in love with to understand him differently. He was a hero in his own right, and he was on his own journey for himself, and because he was there for himself, other people were eventually helped. But his journey of self-acceptance is really, what that original trilogy is about. And yeah, the Rebels obviously ended up benefiting from him taking down the Empire. But I don't know, and I could be wrong, but when you're a queer person and you're young, growing up and not really fitting in and connecting, and then you eventually go find your people, it's profound, and it's something that I think is a universal understanding among queer people in the queer community, but it's really powerful. I liken it to Jyn Erso when she found her acceptance as a rebel, to Finn when he finds his acceptance that he's more than just a stormtrooper. I think Leia when she finds herself as a mother, I think, and eventually letting her son go, but a connection to a community that you weren't sure you were ever going to be a part of it's a profound thing. And without these past few years of my life, I'm not sure I would have totally just to circle back to the closing of the Skywalker saga, I'm not sure if I would have understood that incredibly powerful closing to all 9 movies, to the saga, if I didn't have this experience. I don't think I would have understood the power and the ability to even being able to take a name. It means a lot to me, and I know to a lot of people. And I don't want to go into it again. I said this earlier. I don't want to go into it too much because there are episodes about it. But over the past few years, you know, I took my husband's name. After more than a decade together, I was able to do something that I never thought I would be able to do, even as an adult. Even when Tom and I, were first together, it wasn't really even an option. And I was, I had accepted it, and we had a wonderful relationship. We were partners, and I didn't need his name anymore. But I know when I took it, it was something I was really proud and honored to be able to do, and I was grateful for it. And now that I have, three little ones who took our name, it just, they changed when that happened, and it's pretty amazing. Without these past few years, without being a part of a community that was honestly able to rise up and fight an opposing government that didn't believe that we should have the ability, like a rebellion against the empire, we rose and we defeated that ideology that wanted to destroy us. But we defeated it. And along with that, we were able to get married. And with that ability to get married, we were blessed with the opportunity to adopt. And it clearly, obviously, that's had a profound impact on my life. It was something I had to say goodbye to as I got older. And then all of a sudden, I could say, hello there. And, I'm forever better for it and blessed and yeah, all of those things, but without these few years, I don't think I would have understood that without these three little dudes, like from nowhere, I wouldn't have understood that they found us somewhere. I don't know if I'm articulating that the right way, but Ray was from nowhere, and she found somewhere, and it's amazing, and I'm just incredibly grateful that as a parent to three children with trauma, that Ray was able to find somewhere. For me, and I don't ever want to disrespect people who don't agree with it. Because I do understand where they're coming from. I can see it that way. But for me, it's this amazing thing, and it really harkens to what Star Wars is for me, and it's about that calling. It's about that myth that Rey speaks about, and her question of where does she fit in all of this, and she found out that she fit in. She belonged somewhere, and it was in this legacy that came before her, that a life that she could have never dreamed for herself. She found herself there, and it was somewhere all along, and she was a part of that thing bigger than herself. She was attached to something bigger than herself that she didn't understand, and then she embraced it, and now she's Rey Skywalker, and I find it incredibly beautiful. I find it perfect for the closing of this great saga. So, I guess for me, now in this moment in my life, that's what Star Wars is really about. It's about being a part of something bigger than yourself, and the adventure that you can take yourself on to find it. And ultimately, in that adventure, finding yourself in that community, in that feeling, in that force, whatever you want to call it, in that being bigger than yourself. There's an adventure to find it. And for me, that's what Star Wars is. So thank you for listening to this episode, and happy Star Wars Day. I hope you enjoyed it with just little old me. It feels really weird sitting here in front of a microphone without looking at Tom, who's incredibly handsome. It makes it much easier to talk to than Currently, I'm looking at posters of G.I. Joe with Baroness, Storm Shadow, Battle Android Trooper, and Cobra Commander, and I guess the Stormtrooper, and some Han Solo, Lando, and Chewie, and Transformers posters. There's Akbar over there. But let me tell you, looking at Tom Berry's a lot better because he's very, very handsome. I guess you don't see that on the podcast, though, but close your eyes and imagine perfection, and there he is. Sorry, I'm going to ramble. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I really miss Tom. I'm sure you did too, but I appreciate you hanging in there and going down this road with me. Thank you for all of our listeners, and thank you for supporting. And honestly, it means a lot. We get our shout outs and our weekly pod lists, and it means a lot. It's nice. It feels nice to have found another community outside of just being gay. And I know a lot of people out there are straight and they're still listening to an LGBTQ podcast. And that is so like beyond my comprehension. When at my age, I knew there was a time where that wasn't really possible. And now people are listening and don't care that we're gay. And it's really, really great to be a part of that. So I really appreciate it. And if you're a first time listener, I promise it gets better, because you got kind of stuck with the least fun person, and Tom's a lot better at this than I am. So thank you for listening. And again, listen to one of our old episodes. If you listen to the next episode, it's going to get a lot better with him. But thank you, and welcome to our kitchen table. That's always what we wanted this podcast to feel like. We wanted you to feel like you were sitting at our kitchen table with us with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever it is that you do. Preferably, we don't do blue milk here. We do pink milk. So if you wanted a warm glass of pink milk with us, just sit with us and talk and talk about why we love Star Wars, or share why we love Star Wars to try to get closer to our partners or to our friends. So thank you for hanging out, and welcome to the table. But with all that said, we really want to know what Star Wars means to you. That's what's so great. We're in this community together to share our opinions. We don't all have to have the same one, but hopefully we can grow and learn from one another and maybe understand somebody else's perspective that might help us become a more well-rounded person. That's something that Star Wars, I think, is important to it as well. So tell us what it means to you. You can tell us at Pink Milk House on either Twitter or Instagram. You can write us at pinkmilkhouse@gmail.com. That's Pink Milk House, Haus. And if Tom was here, he would tell you that's because I'm a fancy gay. You can also see us at pinkmilk.site. And as always, thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you always. Bye.